And welcome into another edition of the Garbage Goal Podcast. It is the end of January 2024. I'm Patrick, my co-host
It's
Colin
February.
Turner. And we're hours
It's
away from
February 1st.
February. It's actually February. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
It's been February all day. All day it's
It
been February.
it's Groundhog Day. It has been something like 5 or 6 weeks since we've had dropped another episode. First of all, thank you all for all your well wishes and checking on us. Nobody did, but I appreciate it.
No.
We just took a little sabbatical with the holidays and the new year. We were pretty tired from just life in general. I know Christmas was pretty wild and wide open. I know it is for you with two small kids. And
Unbelievable.
same for me, but we are now weeks away from the regular season starting in Central Florida and all across FHSAA in the state of Florida with boys lacrosse. So the first games actually start February 12th. So today's episode, we're going to talk a little bit about those first weeks of games that we are going to see in Central Florida. And we're going to just talk through some of the teams and some of the things that we're hoping to see from Central Florida Lacrosse. And, of course, we're going to be highlighting all those things on the Orlando Lacrosse Report, but we talk about it right here on the Garbage Goal Podcast. So a lot to talk about, a lot to consider, a lot to throw out there. But before we do that and get into that, a lot has been happening over the last few months. Fall ball wrapped up. Again, the holidays. There was tournament lacrosse, U.S. Club Nationals happened. We had the Orlando Open, all these crazy, amazing lacrosse things. We're now getting really close to season starting. And this is a great time, because you and I've had this conversation offline a couple times. It's a great time for us to talk a little bit about parents. And
Yeah.
this could be like a multi episode podcast just talking about parents. I actually have a YouTube channel that I follow that it's a gentleman who's a referee, and he finds videos and shares videos of parents at sporting events basically losing their minds, doing ridiculous things, sometimes fighting, screaming at refs. It's insane. It's comical and it's completely sad. And as a parent of 5 kids and 3 of them who played a lot of competitive sports, um, I'll be honest, I've been there, not to that degree of fighting necessarily, but I've been there. I've done some dumb things, said some dumb things, but we thought it would be a good time just to talk for a minute, just a little bit out there, because some of you guys that are listening obviously are parents of kids coming up, and just remind everybody, what this thing is all about. Yeah, I'm sort of shocked at this. I will think a lot of things during a game, Colin. I'm sort of shocked at the stuff that some parents will actually say out loud. Does that make sense? Like there's things where I'll mumble under my breath or
100%.
I'll think it, but there's some that'll just say it and you went, oh my gosh, they just said that?
Yeah.
I, I don't know.
We talked about this a lot. We call this the Parent PSA. This is truly, we are, what are we? Are we in week 3 of lacrosse now? Week 2.
2 weeks. Yeah, 2 weeks in preseason.
Yeah,
Yep.
we're 2 weeks in. It feels like it's been more than that. I've talked to a lot of coaches, and this is across the board. I'm a parent of young children. Both my kids are in athletics. I have to put it out there. Go do this for little Johnny or little Susie. This is all we got to do. Parents, we've all been there. You think you know the sport, you don't know the sport. Just be there to cheer your little Johnny on, little Susie on. That's all they care. Just show up. Be there. Hey, you played well. You don't need to yell wheels. You don't need to yell shoot it. You don't need to yell all the dumb things that you need to yell. Parent PSA. Coaches are hard to come by in Central Florida. This might not be the problem in the Northeast, might not be the problem in California. I don't know. Edgewater just shut their program down for many reasons. There are programs that are struggling to keep coaches because of what we see going on. Because of what also we don't have 3-man reffing crews for a lot of these games because we don't have enough refs. And a lot of the stuff that we're hearing is because of the parents' attitude and screaming at everybody. we've been there. Patrick's been there. I've been there as a young father, learning my way through this. But it's something that we need to put out there early. Come enjoy these games, celebrate these kids. I can tell you from our side and our coaching, these kids are working their their butts off to get to where they're going to get. And it's hard to know that if dad or mom is giving the pressure, because I'll tell you some stories I've heard from other coaches in Central Florida from our own program. It's absolutely bonkers bananas. Some of the expectations of what people think they should get or what they think they're deserved. And I had a parent tell me, because again, in any line of the world, you always focus on the 20%. You don't focus on the 80%. A lot of everyone's programs are built of great families, things like that. But the noise always gets focused on. And everybody wants to talk in the offseason. Yeah, Michael Jordan didn't make his freshman basketball team. And what a great story that he was able to make his way through and get better and go be who he is. But no, my little Johnny should make varsity. How dare anyone even say that he needs to be put in, get better or have to work a little bit harder or have to go learn the game a little bit more, right? Because he's not ready for the quote unquote big stage of varsity. I am a product of the JV system. I picked up lacrosse in my 8th grade year because my best friend started playing it and I wanted to hang out with my best friend. I worked my butt off to make the varsity team and I got put on JV and I was ticked. And my dad looked at me and just said, get better. If you want to be where you want to be, get better. Didn't go blame the coaches, the moms, the refs, the AD, the principal, the governor of Orlando. Get better. And guess what I did? I went and worked my butt off. It taught me a lesson of what hard work is. And I put the time and effort in, and I made varsity the next year. And we won the mythical national state championship in 1999 that no one gives me credit for. But it's very real. So and I'm going to get off the soapbox here, but I just implore if anybody cares about anything that I say ever in my life, come to the games, enjoy the games, clap, say, good job, little Johnny, little Susie. You did a great job. Win, lose, draw, whatever it is. Remember, coaches are volunteering their time. This is not a position that makes money. A lot of these coaches are 20-plus year coaches, or 5-year coaches, or 3-year coaches that are here because they love the game. They love the sport of lacrosse in Central Florida, and they want to be a part of it. The refs are the same, and I'm the worst with the refs. But I'll tell you, at the end of every single game, those refs walk up, we shake hands because there's a genuine respect with everybody, and that's what this is. Come support. Don't put your kids in positions where they can't succeed. Support them. Do what your parents are, what you're supposed to do as a parent. That's my soapbox. I love all of our parents. I love the community, but I just have to remind everybody, your kid's not going Division I. Your kid's not going to be a professional lacrosse player. He's going to have the best time of his life playing with his friends. And that's what high school athletics is all about. Now, could they go D1? Absolutely. Could they do all these things? Absolutely. Could you do all that? Absolutely. I'm excited for you. We have a lot of D1 players that we've sent. I know Lake Mary's got a lot, and there's some coming out of other programs. So exciting. But it's the 1%. Remember, most of us are 99%, and that's okay to wear your high school's helmet and be more excited than anything in the world. So appreciate the 3 or 4 minute soapbox there.
That's a great,
I'll be done after that.
Parent. That's a great parent PSA. I am, a parent that's been through varsity athletics now for about 8 or 9 years, having played sports in high school and in college. I will say, not to throw water on you a little bit, but I never played JV in anything. And actually, they tried to put me on varsity basketball in 8th grade because I was at a private school. I was at a private school, but all the parents pitched a fit, which is a whole nother story. The older parents pitched a fit because they knew I'd play. But but in all seriousness, the other thing too, I kind of have this running joke with another dad that we've played travel lacrosse with, and I've known for a while. And you'll hear a parent saying something about their kid, like, or their kid's not playing, or he's doing this or he's not doing that or whatever. And him and I have this joke. We'll say, are they watching what we're watching? Because I don't think we're watching the same thing. And the truth of the
It's
matter is, parents, your kid, and this is gonna hurt some feelings. Your kid is not as good as you think your kid is. It probably not as good
and
as you
that's
think
a
your kid
hard
is.
thing to
And
know.
it's
That's a
hard. It
hard
is. It
thing.
is.
But
It is.
again, everyone has a different role. And I'll tell you, you ask anyone that's ever played on the team, there's guys that never play that have more effect on the team than the starters do. And
Yeah.
those people have such a big role. And there's a sophomore that plays for our club, our team, that I'll never forget. His role was to be the guy, the hype guy, the one that kept everybody going. And that
Mm-hmm.
young man is about to have a big role because he gave everything he had every moment. And the best job in D1 is the 47 children that will never see the field that are sitting on every D1 roster paying 100% of their tuition because there's no scholarships in lacrosse.
Right. Right.
Sorry, back on our soapbox.
Yeah.
And they are the hype men for the sideline. It's the greatest thing you'll ever see in college
Yeah.
sports is to watch the sideline of a high-level D1 program that has the quote unquote the janitors bought into the program. That's when you know you've got a great roster. And again, they're having the time of
Yeah.
their lives being on the
I
side.
actually sat. I actually sat in a parent meeting when my oldest was at JU and playing lacrosse there, and he told the parent straight up. He said, "Some of your sons are never going to see the field. They'll come here for 4 or 5 years. They'll never play, but they're important and they're valuable to our program because they do these types of things. They're practice players. They're hype
Yeah.
men. They support the team. There's all these kinds of things that come with that, right? And so, and the same thing's true in high school lacrosse. And one of the things that I've been super encouraged with as I've been watching all the programs post their rosters after tryouts is, some of these teams have some good sized rosters. Typically you're going to see your mainstays, your Lake Highlands, your Bishop Moores, your Winter Parks, your Lake Marys. They're going to have full rosters. They're going to have 25, maybe ticking towards 30 kids. But then sometimes you'll see some other programs where it's like they're struggling to get 17 or 18 kids. And you're seeing those schools now getting up over 20 players, sometimes 25, which is phenomenal because that means the game is growing. And, that's a big reason why we even do this, darn podcast and, take up a couple hours or a week every week or every 5 weeks, whenever
Well,
we decide to
take a
record.
month off. Yeah.
and, take a month off. It's just because we want to grow the game. We want to see more families and more kids get involved in it. And I'll say this, and this will be the last thing, and we'll kind of jump into our season previews. Parents, as another parent, speaking to you, if your son made varsity or JV at your respective school, really realistically enjoy the ride. Enjoy going to the pregame with the other families. Enjoy loading up your car and driving a group of boys to the field for the away game. Enjoy the after game, milkshakes at Chick-fil-A and the pizzas and being at the game with the other families. Get to know some of the other families. Don't scream and yell at the freaking refs. We already don't have enough refs as it is. We could do a whole episode on that. There's a shortage of lacrosse refs, flat out. You're going to see many of your games, if not all of them, are going to have 2 refs instead of 3, which means these refs are going to miss some calls, not because they want to, but because they can't see the field, right? So when there's an offsides and you're already up 9 goals and there's 30 seconds left in the game and you're screaming at the ref, just shut up and sit down, right? So just have some perspective, enjoy it, enjoy the ride. It's so funny to me. I feel like for the most part in lacrosse, the parents that have the kids that really get the game and play the game the right way and are the best kids have the most chill parents because their parents are like, yeah, we just come out and compete, we just do our thing. It's the ones that don't understand the game or their kid is kind of in and out or he's struggling a little bit, and so they're just going to lash out on anybody that'll let them lash out at them. And it's not okay. It's not appropriate. It's embarrassing. You're just going to embarrass yourself. And listen, I'll raise my hand. I have embarrassed myself. I'll never forget one of the first games Garrett played in high school, my oldest son. I think I screamed something about an offsides or something, and it wasn't offsides. And I yelled it, screamed it twice. And some dad who knew better turned around and goes, bro, it's not offsides. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm an idiot. Like
Wheels,
yeah,
wheels,
yeah.
shoot
So,
it.
and yeah, yelling award and yelling all these things, And here's one last thing. Don't yell at your kid to hit other kids. Like, don't be like that guy. Like, oh, hit him, take him out, crack his head, put him on the ground. That's not lacrosse. That'll happen in the
No,
natural progression of the game in a physical game against good teams. But to just tell kids to go take people's heads off and put them on the ground because your kid got knocked on his butt or whatever, like that's the bush league stuff I have no tolerance for. So please come
nope.
to a Winter Park game and yell that, and you and I'll have some conversations because
I'll be on the other
I
side of
can't
the field.
tolerate
Won't
it.
be me.
I can't tolerate it. So that's our Parent PSA.
There we
We're
go.
gonna change gears and shift into now talking about the preseason. As we move towards the first set of games, most teams are going to be playing some preseason game next
Next week.
week, and then the first official games start on February 12th. What I did is I went through the first week of games in Central Florida, and for those of you that don't know, if you go on to maxpreps.com and you filter Florida Lacrosse, you can actually filter it by metro, and they do it by like Jacksonville, Orlando, Tampa, Miami. That's how I pull the scores for Orlando Lacrosse Report. If they're in the Orlando Metro, they get put on the Orlando Lacrosse Report. Because sometimes people are like, why is Forest on there? They're in Ocala. Well, there's because of where the lack of more lacrosse in that area, they get pulled into the Orlando Metro. But the first week of games, a couple games that kind of popped out at me, I think are going to be interesting games. On the 12th, we have Lake Mary playing West Orange, and Seminole is playing Oviedo. I think the Seminole Oviedo game is going to be a great game. Seminole's building a new program. They have a new coach. They have a new kind of feel around the program that they're building there. So I think that that's going to be a nice game. Lake Mary,
Agreed.
West Orange. Lake Mary's. We've talked about it. Lake Mary's a team to beat. They've got a huge target on their back, so this will kind of set the tone for what their season's going to look like. West Orange is going to have their hands full, but West Orange is going to be
which
a
is the
team
answer.
to.
Which is the answer
Yeah.
to anyone Lake Mary's going to play this
Oh,
year.
anybody.
Hands full.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anybody. Yeah. So, but that'll be a good test for West Orange to see how they can try to hold themselves against one of the highest caliber teams, top 5 teams in the whole state
Yep.
at that point. The next game that be a fun one. I mean, selfishly for us, it'll be fun. February 13th, Winter Park is going to be playing Mount Verde. We're at Mount Verde, I believe. That's right. We're at
That is
Mount
correct.
Verde. So that's going to be a fun game. Mount Verde, Coach Spalding. Year in year out as he's
Legend.
taken that program, he's a great coach. And depending on what that talent looks like for them, which we haven't seen yet this year, they're going to be a good team. It's just a matter of like how good are they going to be, depending on how much talent they have. But they're going to be well coached. We know that.
Two young programs going after each other, trying to make a name for who they are, see what their season is. Same for Winter Park, same for Montverde. It'll be a good test for both those teams going into it for sure.
Yep, Winter Park this year, coming back with just 3 seniors, I think it is 3 or 4 seniors.
Yes,
and
I think we graduated 17.
I think only 2 or 3 starters coming back for the whole team. So very, very young team. So it'll be fun to watch to see how they respond. Yep. On the 14th, another couple good games. Again, Olympia playing Seminole. I'm a big fan of Olympia just because I think they have the best Instagram account in Central Florida for boys lacrosse over the last couple seasons. They've crushed it, but Olympia has always got a lot of excitement behind their program. Their boys play hard, so I think that's going to be a good even matchup. And then Freedom and Timber Creek, again, 2 teams that I feel like are probably like in that same sphere of competition and talent. So it'd be interesting to see how those scores play out. The 15th, First Academy is going to be playing Celebration. Celebration is a younger, newer program. TFA, they usually have a handful of kids that can really play, and then they try to kind of fill that team in with as many kids as they can. Being a smaller private school, it can be difficult sometimes, but we'll see what they can do. They're in I call it kind of that district of death with Bishop Moore and Lake Highland. That's a tough district for any 1A school. So the 16th, it's totally loaded. I'll run through these games. You tell me what you think. Mount Verde's playing Bishop Moore. Lake Highland is playing Vieira. Seminole's playing Haggerty. Windermere has Winter Park. Oviedo's got Boone, and then Lake Nona's playing Melbourne. That's all on the 16th. That's that Friday.
Yeah,
I'm
I mean, you got a
super
good slate of
curious
games
about
there.
that.
I'd be curious to see.
Yeah,
No, go
Mount
ahead.
Verde, Bishop Moore. Bishop Moore. No, I was just saying Mount
Correct.
Verde, Bishop Moore. That probably is going to be the game of the night. If in that Windermere Winter Park for sure. That's always a good
Yep.
little rivalry. But I would love to see that Mount Verde Bishop Moore game. I think that's going to be a good game.
Again, Bishop, it's so amazing how wide open Central Florida is after you talk about the two big boys in Lake Mary and Lake Highland, right? You go right below that. It's a bunch of question marks that we're going to find out when we have, you talked about the Winter Park Montverde game. We'll know a lot from that game. Montverde going into Bishop Moore, what that'll be. And then you've got the Lake Highland game. I think Lake Highland's going to be another juggernaut in Orlando, put up a whole bunch of points on people. So it'll be interesting to see what they do.
Yeah,
And
Lake
also,
Highland and Lake Highland and Vieira is going to be a good game. Mostly, we got to see Vieira a couple weeks ago, and Vieira has a handful of kids that can really play. They have a very good goalie. They don't go
very
super
good.
deep. They don't go super deep after that, but they have a lot of guys. They play hard. They're well coached. They're a good team, and so that's a good warm up or a good first week a game for Lake Highland, who is one of the most skilled and athletic teams in Central Florida. They're not as deep as Lake Mary. They don't have as many kids as Lake Mary, but they are definitely skilled, with the guys they have. So that's going to be a fun game.
Who'd you say Boone was playing in that game?
Boone has Oviedo, which again, that's one of those ones where, like, in terms of talent, skill, like, that's a good matchup. I think that's a really good matchup with those teams, with kind of where they all kind of lay, from top to bottom.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, Boone and right now, what I'm about to show you, this would be great for our listening audience, but if you're watching on YouTube or Twiggity Talkity, whatever the heck we put these things on, Boone's already won, in my opinion, the helmet of the year so far. Have you seen these things?
Bro, no, I have not seen those.
I don't know if I'm
sick.
This is real good for podcasting, but yeah, that light blue that they brought into the chrome with their helmets is pretty legit. And you can see it from the front. They've got the decals. I don't know who this is, but you've got the decals running up the top of it.
Nice.
It's pretty
well
legit.
Done.
They look good. Might be the best dressed team in Central Florida. I'll tell you that. I'm partial, but that's a pretty good look out of them.
Yeah, that's kind of cool how they pull that blue off. I like those jerseys. I think the basketball team actually has blue jerseys with the orange as well. They definitely pull those off.
Look good, feel good, play good.
I would say probably the game of the week, though, in the most interesting game in terms of the top tier teams, is on that Saturday. Lake Mary is going to be at Ponte Vedra. That is going to be a hotly contested game. I think it was 2 years ago when Lake Mary played at Ponte Vedra. It was very I don't know what's the word, hostile. It was a very hostile environment at Ponte Vedra. So I don't expect anything less. We've had Coach Polanski, Coach Poe from Ponte Vedra on the podcast. And, everybody knows Chris and knows Coach Poe. I mean, he's a great coach. They have a great program. It's kind of it's a public school, but it's kind of run like a private school. All those kids are insulated. They just sort of they just play. They're all there together. And he's going to have another good squad this year. They've got a great face-off guy, good goalie. So that's a heck of a game.
And they've got a large roster too. You talk about roster management. I think I saw them post. They've got 34, 35 kids on their varsity team up in Ponte Vedra. Lake Mary, again, is bringing an entire starting roster. I think that almost every one of the kids is committed on the team to where they're going. So they're all in. I guarantee you, the second the state championship was over, Coach Robinson and Danny had that game scheduled and triple circled and ready to go, because to set the tone early in the year for who's going to be playing and where they're going to play once they get into the regions and they get into all those late season games. That's going to be a heck of a game to watch. I mean, if we're not playing, that's definitely one I'm going to go pay attention to.
Yeah, we're not playing, and we have. I think my older boys at Flagler College have a game that day. I just have to figure out. Can't remember what time it's at, but I
Yeah.
need to look and see what the schedule looks like because if I can make that happen, I'd love to go watch that game. But yeah, Coach Robinson at
That's going to be
Lake
some high
Mary,
level
Coach Bo at
lacrosse.
Ponte Vedra. It doesn't hurt either one of them in terms of playoff contention, all that. All it does is just make their boys better. I watched Ponte Vedra play at the Orlando Open, and then I also watched Lake Mary play. I watched Ponte Vedra play Lake Highland, and then I watched Lake Mary play St. Andrews, and it was really interesting to see how competitive they were. Um, I believe with my feeble novice lacrosse mind and watching lacrosse over the last, whatever, 12 or 13 years, I think St. Andrews might be the most talented team in the state from top to bottom. Now, again, they're a boarding school. It's a totally different situation than a public school. Lake Mary and then battled. I think it was a double overtime game. And I think they even just did like a Braveheart just to get the game to get over with or something like that. But St. Andrews pulled it out. But it was a back and forth. And it's probably one of those, if they play 10 times, it probably goes 5-5 or 6-4 kind of thing.
Yep.
But they're going to be unbelievably tough in the 1A bracket. But Lake Mary and Ponte Vedra, man, what a game. I mean, those guys, the Lake Mary and St. Andrews game was extremely physical. It was very physical. In fact, it got kind of chippy. There was a lot of flags. Some of it was just kind of sloppy play, but it was very physical. The
Yep.
Lake Highland Ponte Vedra game seemed to me to be a little more just like good, solid, skilled lacrosse, banging the ball around. There was some physical play from Ponte Vedra, which you're always going to get that from them. But Lake Highland likes to move the ball. They're more skilled. They're more quickness. They want to cut. They don't necessarily want to try to run you over. So it was just interesting to watch the difference in those teams. But man, those are going to be those are some great games. And this Lake Mary Ponte Vedra game for that first week of lacrosse, you can't ask for much more than that.
And not to discount anyone else in that region of who's coming through out of the Seminole Athletic Conference and everybody in North Florida. Those are the teams that are going to be there at the end. I mean, they're going to be there, and it'll be interesting to see who comes out.
Well, and I guess too, and I'm not thinking far enough out, but the interesting thing too is that Ponte Vedra Lake Mary game is going to be, that's just a preview of what's to come for the region championship if everything goes according to plan, right? Anything can happen. A couple years ago,
100%.
Creekside
Injuries can happen.
Yeah, Creekside upset Ponte Vedra, whatever that was, 3 years ago. When
Yep.
Ponte Vedra had a loaded team, so anything can happen. But if everything goes according to plan, and what it looks like is going to happen, it's going to be Ponte Vedra and Lake Mary again playing
Correct.
each other in that region final, and I'm sure it's going to be a slugfest. So this will be a good preview.
I can't wait.
For that. Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. We've got tons of lacrosse coming up. I'm super excited to see some of these kind of lower tier teams that are taking that step up to that middle tier in Central Florida. We'll talk more about those teams as we see them make those steps and get some wins and get some quality wins under their belt. But I feel like in Central Florida, if you take Lake Mary and Lake Highland out of the mix, this might be one of the most like even playing fields in Central Florida lacrosse in the last 5 or 6 years, because there's just a lot of good solid teams, but none that are just like so much better that you just expect them to win every time they walk out. So there's going to be some games, some scratchers. We're going to be like, who beat who, that kind of thing. I think that's what I think is going to happen this year.
I'm all about disqualifying Lake Mary out of the 2A division and allowing us to be able to do that. I mean, I'm a big fan of that. But, at the end of the day, this is what we want. This is what you want in lacrosse. You want an even playing field across the board, a little bit more, quote unquote, watering of the down, if you will, right? It'll be interesting to see who and where they come and what the powers that will be, because it'll always shake out in the end. But it's good to see the programs growing and starting to see that competition come through, because That's what everybody needs. You need competition in your local market, and that'll be fun to get there because Central Florida's trying to catch up, obviously, to South Florida, right? That's where the powerhouses are. You get a lot of that movement in the private schools. The 1A now is really dominated now with the 2A breaking off. We've got a little bit more parity in there, which is exciting. So, no, it'll be a hell of a year. I'm excited for it. And what we have coming up throughout the next couple of weeks, interviewing different coaches, talking about their season, what they're looking to do, it'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, we're teeing up some interviews with different head coaches across Central Florida, and so Colin and I are lining those up. Really as we're recording right now, and getting those set up for you. So we'll be talking about different teams and individuals and what their outlook is for the season. Of course, as the season goes along, we're going to talk about some of the wins and losses and some of the things that we're seeing. And we'll be sharing plenty here on the Garbage Goal podcast and the Orlando Lacrosse Report as well. And just remember, make sure that if you're on Instagram, you're on TikTok, Facebook, make sure you're tagging Orlando Lacrosse Report on all your posts and make sure that we're following you. If we're not following you, your team, send it to us, direct message me, and I'll make sure that we get you a follow. And then two, we're going to talk a little bit about some college lacrosse. Man, it's going to be a ton of great lacrosse in Florida. Rollins, Florida Southern, Tampa, once again, considered, some of the top Division II lacrosse in the country. I know Rollins and I believe Tampa were both ranked in the top 10 for Division II nationally so far in the preseason. It's going to be a ton of good lacrosse there. And then you throw in all these other teams like Flagler and Lynn and Florida Tech and Embry-Riddle. So, there's a lot of good stuff happening. It's going to be a lot of fun for the next few months as we try to track all this stuff down. So, Colin, thanks for the Parent PSA. Thanks for breaking down this first week of games, and looking forward to continue to break it down. And listen, if I see some parents get out of hand, we'll just do another Parent PSA. We'll just start making TikToks for Parent PSAs.
And if you've made it this long in the Garbage Goal podcast, first off, thank you for listening and all of this. But remember, we are all here for the love of the game. There's
Absolutely.
not a coach I know that is getting rich off lacrosse, and there's not a parent I know that is getting scholarships out of lacrosse. So remember,
absolutely,
I love you. I love everybody. Keep that in mind as we're out there. We're all here to cheer Johnny and little Susie on, and let's go get it.
All right. Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Garbage Goal podcast brought to you by Orlando Lacrosse Report. For Colin, I'm Patrick. Until next time, thanks for listening in. Okay.